All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, of the London is Blue podcast. Hopefully, your favorite Chelsea podcast out there and a part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. Dan, one of your hosts here. And we're back after a little bit of a reprieve due to some wonderful globetrotting that our good friend Sam, CFC Central, has been involved in over the past couple weeks here. But we're not coming back, unfortunately, for like the happiest, the rosiest, the most optimistic match preview you've ever heard, because this is an Everton team that just knows how to do one thing really, really well: draw points out of other teams, draw other teams. And we're heading into a situation, Sam, where it's win or nothing in terms of what happens for Chelsea's future as a Champions League team, a candidate maybe at this moment for the next season. And ooh, it is quite the narrow road that we walk to get there.
Like you mentioned, Dan, it's heating up, and considering where I am in smack bang in the middle of Bombay, where it is already very hot, I wish it wasn't this uncomfortable. But yeah, we essentially have to get some very big results, starting with Everton. We had a surprising stat before the game we discussed, before the pod that we discussed, and you begged me not to jinx it, so I'm not going to reveal it.
You
But
can't say that one.
yeah, I mean,
You can't say that on air, because the moment it happens, it's going to be what people make a comment about when this pod gets
okay, no,
dropped. We'll get the
now you're
response
scaring
on
me. Now
social media.
now you yes.
I'm not trying to scare
You're
you. I'm just trying
terrifying
to
me a
be
little bit.
honest about it, Sam.
I mean, okay, fine. I'm going to leave that stat. If anybody wants to know, you can secretly DM the London is Blue Twitter handle or something, and I'll drop the stat there. But yeah, um, it is just like you have to have a really good set of results starting from this one, because you look at their form, and you look at where we want to be, and without a doubt, you need to have a result here. There's absolutely no two ways about it. There are two very good informed sides competing with us, three if you count Forest, and there's absolutely no room to slip up. So this is a huge one, Dan. And Everton, um, the moment you say Everton, it like Goodison Park always pops up, but luckily this one's at home for us. And if like home fortunes have taken a upturn after just the atmosphere has been lifted after the kind of win that we got against Fulham last time out, I hope Stamford Bridge will be rocking, and we'll be able to create a really good atmosphere for the boys.
That is what we should hope for in this one. And maybe as we kind of just even shift into the conversation here, again, this is match preview. We're going to be talking about Everton. We're going to be talking about what's been going on with their recent form. And again, they have had some very unique results here that are worth talking about. Any type of big players missing for the match. We'll give a bit of an update around the style of play, how it's going for them at the moment, talk about any strengths and weaknesses, then do our wonderful predictions, the on the ledge ones that we like to make, and then get you out of here. But Sam, as we're talking about results, this is a team that lost against Man City 2-0, beat Nottingham Forest, drew Arsenal, had a decent 1-0 loss to Liverpool, drew West Ham, drew Wolves, drew Brentford, drew United, beat Crystal Palace. Going back even the mid part of February, had a 2-2 draw against Liverpool. Like, they are just a much better team this back half of the season than you would remember from the first half.
Yeah, I mean, in the reverse fixture, we had all sorts of like pretty bad things to say about them, and thought that it was going to be a tough season for them, which it ended up being. Sean Dyche was fired, and they got David Moyes back for the vibes, and obviously they've got their new stadium being inaugurated very soon. So the vibes in general are very good at Everton. I think there is a lot to look forward to. So yeah, with the new manager coming in, they've essentially gone back to the most Moyes results that you can think. That everybody they should have lost to, they've lost to. But everybody else, which has been semi decent or displaying some kind of weakness, even good sides, they've drawn against. There are, I think, 5 draws in the last 8 games or something. So that just tells you everything you need about Everton. They're going to be nasty, annoying to play against, and you have to find that crucial opening, and it only appears once or twice against them.
And maybe as just we're thinking about it, then players that are missing for them, obviously, Amanda Broya is out for an extended period of time. I know Tarkovsky's out, Calvert Lewin, like players that people would have heard of or, generally tend to remember the name around. Any other maybe injury concerns as they're heading into this one? Players that, being out puts them into a disadvantage, or players who've kind of popped up maybe recently who've been able to cover for them and that, is actually turning into a bit of a strength.
And this is an interesting one, Dan. So the one big absentee is obviously James Tarkowski. He unfortunately did his hamstring, and I don't remember what the stat was, but he's definitely played every single minute of every single game for Everton. But I don't know if he's played every single minute of every single game in the past 3 or 4 seasons, something like that. But he's been a constant through the defense and been the bedrock of essentially everything that they tried to do there. And losing him is I think was also pretty bad for them in the Man City game. He went off. Michael Keane came in. He made a couple of like embarrassing errors. You could see Pickford was shaky after that. The entire defense lost their just the nerve that they have in the middle of the defense and essentially just conceded 2 late goals to City. So I think he's going to be a massive miss. If you look at the frontline situation, Armando Broya, not really somebody who's been free scoring, but he's also come back after a long injury hiatus. Lots of injury niggles since his time at Chelsea, Everton as well. They've got Beto, who's actually their second best scorer with 6 goals. He's going to be a handful. He's essentially, I think, their only centre forward option. DCL can also offer a lot of issues here and there. He was a very good player when he did break out with Everton, but just lately hasn't been his normal self. But other than that, I think those are the two guys that I really look at and say they're going to be big misses. But other than that, Jesper Lindstrom, not really somebody who would probably take White McNeil's place. McNeil himself has been injured, Dan. We talked about him being missing for the reverse fixture also, and he was in quite good nick before that. So he's not been playing, and when he's played, he's looked like he's not even close to complete match fitness. So he's again going to be a big loss. And the one big hole that I just point out because of the Tarkowski injury is who they're going to play at right back because they've been playing a centre back there. And with Michael Keane's issues, he might be moved to centre back. So that leaves a gap either at right back or either at centre back. And it'll be interesting to see how Moyes approaches that when he sees us. Like, is he going to protect the centre or is he going to just keep his full back there and trust Michael Keane?
Oof. Plenty of considerations to be made in this one when it comes to how he'll set up for this side. Let's get our first ad break out of the way and we'll get back. We'll be all about the style of play that this team is engaged in right now, particularly, again, as Sam mentioned, after Sean Dyche went out the door and David Moyes had a triumphant ish return. So stay tuned. I'll be right back. Okay, Sam. So you planted the seed earlier. It's not the Sean Dyche team that we're getting. It's David Moyes back at it at Everton, having a chance to win back the hearts and mind of the faithful, the Toffees faithful. How has it been going for him? And in general, like, is this team? I mean, if you just look at the results on paper, I mean, they're for 13th in the table. They're not necessarily a side that look to be pushing to any type of level of European competition in this season. Feels as if it's all going in the right position and direction for them as it relates to where they'll end the season on the upward trajectory.
Yeah, I think from now till the end of the season, there will be a little bit of a flux. What do they do? Do they try and just play their way into figuring out what the plan is for next season, or all have they already figured that out and it's just protecting key figures, not getting, just what is essentially a postseason game or spell of them just going out there and injuring somebody who's then not available for the start of next season. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're like a little bit at the beach, maybe now that they're mathematically safe from relegation, maybe a little less to play for. That's basically the mindset that I'd put it. But again, it's Chelsea, so nobody takes it easy, no matter what the stakes are. So I do expect like a pretty tough game, irrespective. But if I were to look at just what Moyes has been doing right, it's he's brought back what the identity is for Everton. It was trying to be very hard to beat a team that is just rough to come up against. An 11 of very tall, physical players who are very good at dueling, who are essentially just very good at marshalling space and making sure that you don't have any of it. They're very reliable, very focused on the long spells of pressure. So they will look to win the ball with fierce counter pressing, and they'll try to break from there. So that's what Moyes does very well, and it's what they've been trying to do. To give you an example, Dan, I watched the City game and the Arsenal game for this one and tried to see what the approach was against two sides that maybe compare in terms of playing style. But until the 64th minute, City only had like shots equaling around 0.23 expected goals. It was very frustrating for Pep. Like I mentioned, there were some incidents that played into that game. Tarkovsky going off injured, a couple of other things happening, Doku coming on. That sort of made a difference. But it was a very frustrating game for them. Arsenal also tried making some kind of inroads for the longest time, managed a little, like under 1 xg in each half, but it wasn't easy for them. They had to move away from their game model of trying to be patient, and then they took this, transition approach where they're trying to break, trying to be quicker in their attacks, and that's essentially what Everton wanted. So it was a little bit of a back and forth game there, and it ended in a draw, but it could have basically gone either way. So that's what I think you can expect. You can expect them to be quite solid and essentially tough to break down in, especially in the first half of games. If you were to look at the numbers, then they are the league's fourth best defense. They're essentially tied with us on that number on goals conceded. On expected goals against, they are fourth in the league, while we are eighth. Jordan Pickford, I think, has been in really good form, especially in shot stopping form in the games that I watched. Branthwaite had a little bit of a hiccup last season. This season took some time to find his feet, but he looks now quite assured, looking very much like the player that was linked with the 60, 70 million pound move to Liverpool or to United. So he'll be one to watch. Tarkovsky, like I said, is the big miss there. So it'll be interesting to see if O'Brien moves to centre back, if he retains his right back position. But if that happens, then Everton go inside this game with like three centre backs, which again, set piece issues both ways will be quite interesting to watch. In midfield, it's Gay, who's excellent. I think he's one of the best high volume defensive players in the Premier League. He will tackle well, he will pressure with an infinite amount of aggression, and he will also sort of start quick counterattacks with his shot carrying. And he has been ably supported by his partner Garner, so he's also going to be quite a nuisance. And just the shape that is then like trying to be close together, being narrow, being compact. And this is a side that's fourth highest for interceptions in the Premier League. So when you lose the ball, you definitely know when you're trying to even play through the center, there's a very good chance that those two guys essentially nick the ball off you and then go straight long in behind for the front line to try and make some kind of issues. If you look at the attack, then Amando Broya is, of course, ineligible against us, so he's going to be out. DCL is out, which means Beto is going to play. He's a very, very physical target man who will try to go 1v1 against the likes of Colville or the likes of Chaluba and try to bully them and get those knockdowns to those three players behind. On the right hand side, there has been some issue with like Dwight McNeil not being there. And in that position, you've basically got Jack Harrison. He has, I think, the one goal. Don't think he has any assists. So the right side has been a little bit defunct. In the center, you've got Decore, who's playing the number 10 position, but he's essentially more of a box to box kind of player. He will drop, he will do the hard work, he will also press in the front line. And the good thing is that he makes these very clever runs into the box as a box to box midfielder, and he pops up with the occasional goal. And his goal tally speaks for itself. He's also featured among Everton's top scorers, will be a very dangerous creator also. So he's definitely one to watch. And the most amount of threat, Dan, I think, will come from the left hand side, and that's via the tricky Iliman Ndiaye. And Ndiaye is tricky because he can be a wing player. He can take people on. He can also move to the half spaces. He can pop up at center forward positions. He can shoot with either foot. And he's the top scorer with 7 goals, which is quite odd to say top scorer with 7. It reminds me of those times when we were top scoring with 7 with
Jorginho.
Jorginho. But yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, but Everton surprisingly one of I think 6 sides this season with only a top scorer in single digits, and a lot of surprising names in there. Dan, I mean, you've got Everton, of course, Southampton, Leicester City are the two relegated sides in there. Manchester United in there with Fernandes with 8, West Ham in there, and of course Arsenal in there with Kai Havertz at 9. So, yeah, quite a surprising one. But Everton are there. That's where I think the issues are. The attack is good, but not clicking. Defense is very good. They're very focused, tough to play against, and it'll essentially be a battle of attrition, in my opinion. Dan, just they're going to try and get into your head till halftime. Like nothing's working. You need the 3 points. You need the 3 points, and expecting you to make a mistake.
So, as we think about then, what are the ways that this Chelsea team can still get at them? And maybe before that, we can just chat about the fact because we haven't done a preview pod together for a little bit here. Where are you at right now with where this Chelsea team is at with this last run in set of fixtures and maybe a general like confidence level on getting across the line? I would say across the line is top five. And then, you can kind of share maybe where your opinion is on just the team in general at this given point in time, and then we'll talk about Everton's weaknesses because that I think that's a combined conversation. How Chelsea are doing and how well they can take advantage of those weaknesses is kind of a conjoined item.
Definitely, I think that's an interesting conversation to have. I think I've made my feelings very clear on the dispatch to the displeasure of many, but I promise to be honest. And I think my concerns are essentially just how well suited is this Chelsea team to making the breakthrough early and the ability to play more than one half at a time. I think those are my two major concerns. And this is stretched like since the start of 2025, where we've just played one half at a time. And it's something that you saw against Leicester. It's something that you saw against Legia. You saw against Fulham as well. It's just one of those half turns out bad. And at this point in time, you need to be able to make full use of the 90 minutes. We all know the kind of situation that is there in the goals that we have up front. I mean, Kukureya is outscoring Nico Jackson and Cole Palmer. That's not something that you want at this point in the season. The one thing that I will give Maresca credit for is like defensively, we have got very good numbers. We tend to be keeping teams out, which is important to do. But we need the 3 points. So keeping a clean sheet will be crucial. But more importantly, it'll be against a side like Everton that will be there to frustrate you. Is that you get those early goals, you be absolutely clinical in the way that you deliver your goals, and then essentially you protect what you have, and that's when your defensive prowess comes into being, your possession comes into being. And unfortunately, Maresca seems to take the opposite approach. It's like you take the possession, you take the defensive approach, and then look for goals, and that has sort of come to bite us in the bum a couple of times. So in terms of a confidence, in terms of defensive perspective, I would actually give us a 6.5 or a 7. I think I'm fairly confident that this could be a clean sheet. But when it comes to attack, I'm not so optimistic. I would say a 4, 4.5. We desperately need Nico Jackson to find form. We desperately need, you know, Cole Palmer to do his magic again. And we haven't been able to rely on them for a good 12, 13 games now, which is a long dry spell. So that's where I'm at, Dan. I don't know if you share those concerns, if you feel a little more buoyant at this point in time.
Look, I think you should at least feel buoyant about the fact that this team figured out whether it was with Maresca or without Maresca on a way to come back being down in the last game. So that feels like a good thing to hang our hat on. It doesn't resolve all the challenges, situations going on with the style of play or how it's getting on at the moment for Chelsea, but I mean, that makes me feel better. So I think those are type of things to kind of maybe keep in mind. And, heading into this, you're at home. You are trying to find a way to kind of maintain, at least what's been a better-ish home form, in the recent days. I mean, obviously, we did have the 2-2 draw against Ipswich, but, we had the 1-0 win against Tottenham there. We had the 1-0 win against Leicester City. We had the 4-0 out against Southampton. So, I mean, there is maybe some things there, a 2-1 versus West Ham. So, like, we have some positivity at home that we should hopefully capitalize on as long as we're not playing teams from Poland in the second half of a two-leg tie. So, I mean, yeah, I think there should be reasons to feel better.
I mean, you did mention Southampton, Tottenham, Ipswich. Those are all teams in the bottom half of the table. So Well, luckily Everton are as well. But yeah, it's the games that come after also that I'm keeping an eye on. So this one is like, let's take this at a time first. We definitely have to get 3 points here. And so often we're so obsessed with our own results saying, oh, 3 points, 3 points. But there are three other teams in the contention. And like Matt mentioned on the pod, he was watching Tottenham, he was watching Forest, and they look out of steam. They've been playing the same 11 week in, week out, and they look burnt out. So who knows? Like at this point, you will drop silly points. So just make sure that it's not us. That's the best advice that I can give them, and do what is right for you, and the rest will sort of follow suit. So I'm hoping that's what the team is going to do.
All right, then. So now that we've set the stage for how this Chelsea team is currently playing and maybe just what you're feeling in terms of performance, defense, and attack, why don't you run me through the weaknesses from the filter then of how these are the things that this Chelsea team will be capable of taking and using as a platform to really stick it to them?
I think the first point is something that I'd like to borrow from the preview pod that we did for the reverse fixture, which was they were second for bottom for goals scored, which is 14, and last time out. And this time they're fourth lowest with only the three relegated sides below them. I know one of them isn't relegated as yet, but I mean, I don't see any way out for them. So only the three relegated sides are below them. And it's been tough. Like getting goals to go in has been very, very tough. I believe the conversion rate is one of the worst in the Premier League. They've only created 64 big chances, which is somewhere like I think 16th or 15th. So creatively, they're failing as well. They don't have a team that maximizes that. I think it's a team built for durability, for resilience, not to be creative, which is something Arsenal also go through sometimes. And of course, like the reliance on out of possession means that they have very low possession. I think they're somewhere around the bottom. I think second bottom, 19th in the Premier League for average possession. So it's not a side that gets a lot of the ball. It just relies a lot on going and making some kind of a dent as soon as they have the ball. And against top quality sides, that doesn't pay off. So I think that's been a big issue, essentially getting to score. Um, Specifically for this fixture, Dan, top creators for Everton this season may be on the bench or maybe unavailable. So if, for example, if Dwight McNeil is unfit and can't start, or if he's not risked because of the circumstances, then only one of the top four creators for Everton this season, like chance creators per 90 minutes, only one of those guys, which is Harrison, will start. All the others will be on the bench or unavailable. So I think creatively they will struggle, except if it's from set pieces from where they're very, very good. Don't give them stupid free kicks or corners, and I think you should genuinely be able to keep them away from goal. Even I would say like excuse me. I would say probably like they would probably be limited to less than 5 shots on target if I had to make a bet. So um, that's something that I'm going to keep an eye on. The third one is something that I mentioned early on in the pod, saying that one of the right back or the centre back positions could be vulnerable. So if Tarkowski is out injured, then you only have Branthwaite, who's going to make a good amount of defensive cover in that central regions. But you can essentially stick one of Nico Jackson on the centre back, or you can get whoever it is on the left flank. If it's Pedro Neto, who's been in great touch, to go out there and do 1v1 things against them. Doku had a lot of success, even against O'Neill. So probably will be able to do a lot of good things from that left wing. So I think that's going to be, from an individual standpoint, something that you can target. You can go out there and individually pick out those two players at the Everton backline and see what kind of damage you can do against them, especially if it's Michael Keane in centre back. Tell Nico Jackson to be 1v1 with him every single time that he can go. Even Branthwaite is a little slow to turn. Pull one of those guys out and see if you can get in a foot race with them. I think that's an easy way to beat them. The other point is Pickford has been excellent at shot stopping, but I think he can be quite eccentric with his decisions, especially when it's like set pieces and the deliveries are played in a way where he has to leave his line to make a decision. I think that's where he can be quite clumsy. Like his punches sometimes don't connect. Sometimes he flaps at it because of his height, can't really get there. So if you are looking at this from a set piece coach's perspective, if Bernardo Cueva is doing his homework, obviously he is, um, then you have to get your set piece delivery somewhere close to Pickford and get him to leave his line, like get him to make one of those stupid decisions, and that might yield. I think A goal coming from a Pickford mistake or sort of like him and a set piece not doing enough is something that I would probably sort of underline as a possibility. And the last thing I'd probably say is not a weakness, but a pattern is that Everton are just excellent in the first half of games. They've only conceded 13 goals in the first 45 minutes of 33 games this season. However, they've conceded twice as many in the second half of games with 26. So, like I mentioned, Dan, patience will be key. Hopefully, the Stamford Bridge crowd knows that even if there's no goals in the first half, this is exactly what Everton want. They want to get in your heads. They want you to believe that it's going to be difficult, that you commit that extra man, that you take those extra risks, and then they're able to cause that amount of damage. So I think the key is to remain patient, to know that this is a side that probably won't score as many as they used to in the past, and just to keep at it, you have to go hammer and tongs, throw as much as you can at their defense, take lots of shots, like long range shots, take lots of them, give Pickford an issue, give him a reason to be nervous, and hopefully you'll be able to make some kind of inroads before the second half starts, and you have a lead to protect.
Well, definitely all things that you would hope then that this Chelsea side takes advantage of and just makes it academic, which would be the thing that we would all appreciate at this point in the season. Just an easy one before it starts to get a tad more difficult in the upcoming fixtures. But we're going to take our last ad break. And when we get back, it's time for some predictions as well as our on the ledge ones there. A couple questions that Sam throws my way, and then we get you out of here. But stay tuned. We'll be right back for that part. Okay, Sam, your turn to flip the script. You have some questions, as usual, I would imagine, that you want to throw to me to think about. I don't know how to operate in Maresca's mental mind model anymore. I'm just going to try to, freewheel it here as best as I can, as close as I can to what I think he's going to do.
Fair enough. I mean, we both do our best to try and get close to that process, but yes, for the first one, quite a straightforward one, Dan. You've obviously looking at Nico Jackson, no goals in 13, 14 games now. He's missed 13 out of 13 big chances in this spell. So do you persist with him, or are you looking at maybe shifting Pedro Neto to the center, getting Madueke on the right side, and maybe like getting Jadon Sancho or Tyreek George on the left? Is that the configuration you're thinking of to try and get more goals?
Ooh, I, so here's what I think happens. I think Nico Jackson starts. Like I think that is just what's going to happen. And if you're hoping for something different, if you believe something different is going to happen, I don't think that's the case because even though while Pedro Neto had a little bit of a spark when he was playing centrally for that period of time, doesn't mean that he can kind of continue, in that like kind of steam level for a significant period. I generally think that I don't know if there's anyone who is consistent enough as a attacker at this point in the season for Chelsea that I would bet on any of them to come good, to improve their form. And again, you mentioned earlier, we're looking at Marc Cucurella as one of like the standout attackers in most recent memory. And that's like having a team that has Nico Jackson and Cole Palmer on it, who last season and earlier parts in this season, you would argue were pushing Chelsea into really rarefied air within the Premier League. And now that has disappeared completely. So I think Maresca is going to stick. I don't think he's going to pivot on it. And I think it's also because while he's willing to trust Ty George enough to leave Nkunku out of the squad and to call upon him and to let him be one of the heroes over this past weekend, I don't know if he's going to start Ty. I think he's going to want the flexibility of saying, okay, I have Neto or Jaden or Madueke start, and then I have depth and rotation, and it allows him to kind of do what he wants to do. That's just my feeling, but you can tell me if you think he might try to do something differently.
No, I think I completely agree with you in terms of um, I don't think now is the time for experimenting and essentially sort of maybe whatever little confidence is left in Nico Jackson's heart, sort of like evaporate that also by benching him. So maybe you just like stick with him and tell him to find his scoring boots. That's the way that you go about it. He isn't going to get better on the bench. But yeah, just struck me as quite an interesting one because Arsenal obviously did not have Kai Havertz did not have Gabriel Jesus, and they played Leandro Trossard there, and he managed to score. Obviously, it was on a transition. So, winger playing at centre forward for Arsenal did manage to add that little bit of speed, 1v1 against the centre backs, and essentially on a break managed to score against him. So it does work. Even Marmoush, who's not, a number nine, was the one who played up front in Erling Haaland's absence for Manchester City. And there were some interesting configurations. Like he was making runs, like underlaps into the box. He was making some interesting connections on the flanks to sort of get Everton to, defend deeper, to try and create a lot more issues in terms of how they were overloading. So there are tactical options available to Maresca if he does. Like he's tried Tyreek George there, and he ended up, coming in from the center forward position, slightly drifting in, and then scoring that equalizer in the last game. But you have essentially two options, two wingers who can play on either flank. And if you do believe that that right flank is going to be weaker for Everton, then maybe there's an option that you play Tyreek George there, or Pedro Neto there, and target that to try and see if you can get at the centre back and cause a lot of issues. So I think tactically, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, but it's very, very unlikely. But it's definitely something that Maresca might want to keep in mind. So I think it's a good call. I expect Jackson to start, and Jackson should start. Like I want him to score. I really, really like him as a player, and yeah, hopefully from here on, good things will come in the last 5 games of the season, which he did last season as well. So that's a good one. But thank you for the answer. I'm going to move to the second one immediately. Yeah, I think quite a straightforward one here. Tyreek George rewarded for a start, with a start for his goal, or do you still sort of figure, it's prudent to play Jadon Sancho on the left hand side or Pedro Neto on the left hand side, and even between those two, who are you going with your first choice? Left winger. Are you going to target that centre back using a guy who's a left footer, or somebody like a Sancho who offers a different kind of threat?
My feeling is that he might go with Sancho and Madueke to start, and then Neto and George to end up coming in. And maybe due to the fact that, Madueke was, a half of a sub appearance or half appearance in the last match, seemed to be kind of working back in still. I mean, Neto is, I think, absolutely wonderful for, I think periods of time. And, maybe he be good to kind of think about unleashing him for 20 to 30 minutes and just letting him run. I say 30, but I know Maresca, it's going to be like the 70th, 73rd, 74th minute when that actually happens. So we'll see. And then I think it's a matter of then when do you potentially bring or refresh one of the two with Tyreek George for, I'm going to guess, somewhere between 10 minutes to 12 minutes. I don't think it's going to be a very big cameo again, but it would be progress. And it would be progress for people who criticize the lack of involvement of those players. And, some of this is forced, right? If Mikhailo Mudrik was available and had not put himself in potentially questionably into this position that he's in, which we still need to see kind of a final and outcome in, he would potentially be starting above Tyreek George. Like, if players had been healthier around him, he wouldn't have necessarily gotten these opportunities. And so sometimes if it's injury that forces you to make that decision. And even if it's through injury, I don't care. I'm just happy that a couple of our younger guys are getting an opportunity to run out there and show their stuffs. And hopefully they, can be included and involved in a improved way heading into the end of the season and then into our plans for the Club World Cup and next season too.
I mean, quite interesting to me that you're going to bench both of the guys that won you the game last time out. I mean, I don't know
I
how
just
that sort
know
of
what
serves.
I'm just saying what I think he's going to do. I don't know if I agree with it. I'm just trying to prognosticate
No,
what I
that's
think
fair.
Maresca is going to do.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, this is a point that I brought up like multiple times, saying that I if there's any sympathy that I have for Nkunku, it's just this: that every time he scored a hat trick, every time he scored like 2 games or had 3 goal contributions a game, the next game he's been benched. And ultimately, if you're a player, it must deflate you. Like, what else do I need to do? And you keep saying it's not a B team and we are one squad. But I don't see any promotion for me. So I don't know how it affects you from a psyche perspective. I'm not talking about Neto, who now knows that he's like, up there in terms of the important players in this run. But like maybe somebody like a Tyreek, you want to give him a little bit of motivation. But yeah, maybe not ready to play the 90 minutes. But yeah, I mean, he's got what, two goals in the last four appearances. Cracked his first goal against Legia, got the second one, which is a huge, huge goal. So why not give him? He's essentially looked like the most exciting left wing player that we've had. He loves taking on. Maybe he needs to work a little bit on separating, getting those shots away that have worked so nicely at academy level. But yeah, just feels like one of those moments. Like, can he rise to the occasion and grab that left wing spot for himself? But I completely agree. There's such a difficult line between you saying what you feel should happen versus what you think Maresca is going to do. And Maresca himself, like, we obviously criticize his decisions a lot, but under pressure, it is definitely not easy to experiment. So that's something that you've done superbly well. I tend to waffle about what I think should happen, which is I think my shortcoming. But yeah, probably the last question then before we move on to predictions. Reece James, right back, went to a little bit of an inverted position, has been caught out a couple of times in those central areas when he's trying to move. Doesn't look like he's fully match fit. Now, with Gusto carrying an injury, do you think it is wise to sort of like keep doing the inverting thing, moving Reese to midfield? Maybe it's a role that he grows into as he gets fitter. Or at this point in time, do you just say, okay, you're going to be a conventional right back becoming a right centre back? He tried that with Achimpong as well, moving him into midfield. But before that, it was you're a right back going to become the third, centre back, something like he did with West Fofana, with Trav Chalobah. So do you think it entails a position change for Reese, sort of like a little bit of tweaked responsibility to make him a little more at ease than just inverting into midfield, or do you ask him to just take charge because he's captain and say, "This is the role you'll be playing next season"?
What I think will happen is I think that Enzo Maresca will continue to move forward playing Reese how he's continued to play him recently and hope that the mistakes or work themselves out or that the return to form happens in front of his eyes. What I think should happen is definitely different than that and more aligned with some of your thoughts around how do you potentially tweak subtly how he's used, how he's deployed, what position he is ultimately deployed at to get the most out of his skill set, because it doesn't feel as if it's all plus positive when Reese is on the pitch right now, unfortunately, which is a really terrible thing to have to say, because I think what we were talking about earlier in the season when he was unavailable was like, man, you get Reece James back at the end of the season and he's on fine form and he can be fit, and you get 10 to 15 games from him, like we're going to be in a really good spot. And that is not the reality of the Reece James that we've received in his return into the team. And so it would, I think, behoove Maresca to tweak a little bit on and to be willing to flex. And, to his credit, there are things he has decided to flex on. There are a lot of things also that he has decided not to flex on. And this feels like it's one that's going to be the latter, not the former.
It would behoove him if he stopped horsing around, if you know what I mean. But anyway,
Oh,
yeah.
but I'm bummed. Shh.
But yeah, point well made, Dan. And I think, yeah, there was this free kick that he took against Fulham, and I could see Leno holding that ball and saying, "Jesus, if that had been hit 15 yards to the right, I wouldn't have been getting it because it was hit with so much power." And even the set pieces that he takes, those in swinging and out swinging sort of looping crosses to the back post, which Tosin somehow keeps missing. I think that's what Reese adds. At least even when he's not fully fit, it's something that I've really liked watching. And I think we're long overdue a booming centre back header from Trev or somebody into the back of the net. So hopefully keeps providing that, because I think he's one of the best crossers in the world, but obviously won't be doing that a lot from central midfield. But yeah, then let's move on to predictions. What are you thinking in terms of like the scoreline, and what is your out of the ordinary observation or prediction in terms of what's going to happen?
I mean, I guess at this point in the season, you could say a Cole Palmer goal, and you would be okay with that being a out on the ledge prediction because it hasn't happened in a while. Um, but I don't want to make too much light of it. I think some level of I think Chelsea win, which I feel more bullish about predicting a win this week than I would have against Fulham last week. So that means probably that we will not win, but that's okay. I'm just going to try to put more positivity out there into the world. I think that it is absolutely a 1-0 win. I don't think that this team is really that capable at times of doing numbers against teams that, in this regard with Everton, have been able to find a way to claw draws. And so one and done, ship it, be good. Hope that Rob Sanchez doesn't have a bad moment on the day, and just try to control the game. Don't let them have fun out of possession. And on the ledge, man, Jaden Sancho goal. That would be nice.
I think he's been in good form, and I think he just realizes that there is a get out clause for us. So just wants to make double sure that he's doing well. He's been good in my opinion in the last couple of games. Just needs to shoot more, needs to take more accountability. But I think that's a very fair-headed prediction for me. I mean, I'm also looking at like a 1-0, but I'm also a little nostalgic because it's just 9 days after the day that Cole Palmer scored four against Everton at Stamford Bridge. So I'm hoping, like I predicted, I think 2-0 that day in the preview pod, and he ended up like scoring a first half hat trick. So I'm hoping something like that happens, and just explodes and does his thing, and we get to see that glorious player again. But I do think it's going to be pretty tense. I'm going to predict like a 1-0 narrow 1-0 win for us. My out of the ordinary prediction is that it comes from a defensive error on the right hand side of Everton's defense, like probably their fullback, or if Michael Keane is playing, then Michael Keane, and probably like Nico Jackson creating some kind of an issue. And if there's a goal, then probably, if I could give a separate prediction, like some kind of set piece confusion caused by Jordan Pickford not doing what he's supposed to do. So those are the two things that I think will happen, that I hope will happen. And 3 points is all I ask. Let everything else be wrong in this preview pod. Just get me the 3 points, and I'll be happy, man.
Well, your request to end Maresca as quickly as possible in this Chelsea team, and hopefully it gets done. But look, that's going to do it for this one, our Everton match preview. Again, we will be back after the Everton game, hopefully broadcasting about a Chelsea win, 3 points, and improved odds at a Champions League place next season. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.